Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to talk about the rules that we learned from the Kill Team Approved Ops Showcase, which was this morning, or last night, over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Warhammer. Now, a little bit of preamble first. I did stay up watching this Twitch stream until 4 AM local time. I tried to note down as many bits and pieces of the rules as I could possibly notice. It's possible that I've missed something. It was quite hard to follow. The stream went down twice, and the commentary, maybe it's a cultural thing, the commentary was very bombastic and American, even though I think the commentator was actually Australian, but it was that very kind of, have you ever seen an American sports commentator in a film? It was like that. So, as a Brit, it just sounded really disingenuous and cringe to me, and that's not me having a go. I'm aware it's a cultural difference, but I just found it really kind of hard to follow what was going on. But I did spot some things. Maybe I spotted something nobody else did, and maybe I've missed stuff that other people have spotted. So you're just going to have to watch my video and then also go and consume all the other content and try and piece everything together into one great big stew of information. But there's loads. Let's get into it. So I started to talk about changes to objectives. So the first thing that we see from the layout, because I've not included loads of screenshots, but here is one. Presumably this is one of the stock layouts, first of all, and we can see that it's very thematic. It looks like a city block. You know, there are some wide shooting lanes from one drop zone to another. Just to be very sort of clear with people, I'm going to take one of my pens here. And so the drop zones, as you might expect, they were playing long table edges. So this is the drop zone down here. Nope, doesn't wanna do it. There we go. This is the drop zone down here. This is the blue drop zone. And then you can see at the top, clearly from where the terrain is placed, where the red drop zone is going to be as well, right? So this is the red drop zone off the top. So you can see that there are a few kind of wide open shooting lanes. You can see that there are these two big buildings which they've termed strongholds. Certainly this one with the red floor in has two floors. It has a ground level, a first floor, and a second floor, right? Or in America, you'd call it a first floor, a second floor, and a third floor, I suppose. And then the one in the top, I think, only has a ground floor and a first floor. These objective markers, I am guessing, are 40 mil round. And if that's true, it seemed like you had to be within an inch of the marker to score it. So it's a subtle change from the previous edition of Kill Team, right? Because previously objective markers were technically a point on the map, and you had to be within 2 inches, that is to say 5 centimeters, right, or 50 mil of the center to claim the objective. Now it's a 40 mil diameter marker, which means it's a 20 mil radius, and you have to be within an inch. And we're crossing the metric imperial streams here, I know. But effectively, right, that means, I think, that you're going to have to have a total control range of 45 mil from the center. So I don't know how this is going to go in the community. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are people going to stick with the markers in the game, in the box, that if they are 40 mil, and go, it's within an inch of the edge of the marker? Or are people going to want third-party markers that include that whole distance of within an inch of the marker? Because you can stand on the marker. So if people are going to want third-party markers that show the whole control range, like we had previously, I think those might have to be different markers to the ones you were using this edition. So manufacturers of small neoprene or 3D printed or acetate circles can rejoice, because I think you're going to get to resell all those things. Because I think now we're going to want a 45 millimeter radius marker rather than a 50 mil radius marker. So your existing markers are 5 mil too big on the radiuses, I think, right? Apologies if you haven't followed that. I probably explained it badly, but that's what I think is happening. The primary mission that they were playing was secure, and you can see that on their UI up here, okay? So the rules for secure seem to be you have 3 objectives. If you hold 1, you score 1 VP. If you hold more than your opponent, either because they haven't got any and you've got 1, you can score 2 VP, or because you've got 2 and they've got 1, you still score the second VP. So a maximum of 2 VP each turn from the primary, right, over the 4 turns of the game, okay? So that's a lot less numbers being pulled by the primary, okay? You have 1 single tack op. So, in this game, the Tempestus Aquilons had a tack op called Confirm Kill, which was to do with them, like, killing people and then getting to put a marker down where the corpse was, and then, like, radioing in that they'd killed somebody, I think is how that worked. And then, the Vespid had an op called Plant Beacons, which was about them standing and placing beacons on the battlefield and having to place a certain number of beacons down on the ground before the end of the game. But they only have the 1 tack op, so it sounds like we're going from 3 tack ops to 1 tack op, and the 1 tack op can be a little bit more involved. And then also, as we discussed previously, you've got the kill op, where you're scoring points for killing your opponent's models, and the number of points that you're scoring is depending on how many models they've got in their team. Now, what's interesting is at the end of the game, you've also got your critical objective. So you designate secretly at the start, and I've covered this before, I'm going to mention it again. You designate secretly at the start either your primary objective, your kill operation, or your tactical operation as your critical operation. So one of those things, and I couldn't catch it. I don't know if it's you score more somehow for your critical operation. I don't think it's double. I listened to the end of the thing, tried to work out exactly how much more you got. But what I will say, and I don't know if this was a slight fix to make it exciting for Twitch, the winner of the game we watched came down to who had designated what as their critical objective. Now, I don't know how common that's going to be in the real world, but certainly for the game that we watched, they were absolutely even on scores at the end of turning point 4, and it was only then when they revealed the hidden information of which of their 3, the primary, the tactical, or the kill, they decided to score extra on, that we had an actual winner. And it seemed like, and I could have been wrong here, it seemed like there wasn't really much other hidden information. So your tactical objective, there was no like equivalent of revealing your tactical objective at the end of the turn. So I'm wondering if, because Plant Beacons doesn't sound very Vespid, right? It's not like create hive nodules, you know? Like, I'm wondering if, as Can You Roll a Crit predicted, right? Faction-specific tac ops are gone, and everyone's going to have to choose a tac op from a list of however many tac ops there turn out to be in the core rules. But just because it could, it sounds to me like they could be there, but it sounds to me if they were there, you'd expect, like, I mean, Confirm Kill could be generic, it could be a Tempesta one, because the Imperium is generic, right, in terms of its language, but because that Vespid one isn't called, like, Protect the Eggs, or Rotate Hive Nodule, or Harvest Crystals, or something Vespid-y, right, that I think might be possibly a sign that we're losing faction-specific tac ops. So certainly, for all the teams that we're going to get rules for as the game releases, we're going to have drastically reworked equipment, talked about that previously, and drastically reworked tac ops, even if much of the rest of it remains the same. So now we're going to talk about movement, line of sight, and terrain. So one first little thing, traverse is gone as a concept. There's now only climb. So you've got to pay your 2 inches to go up and over something. In a lot of cases, that's not going to make any odds, okay? It just depends on the kind of terrain that they bring out in the future and how that actually works. And if we have things like, it was always the fat pipes, right, where if you had to climb over the pipes, you'd have to pay 2 to go up, and then you'd have to pay 1 to go over, and so And then it was just easier to think about that with Traverse, where it was the same thing mechanically. You put the thing down, and you just had 2 less movement. So personally, I found Traverse easier, but we're getting to the same place, right? We're just thinking about it differently. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me a piece of terrain or a structure where this makes a material difference. I suppose if you're... No, I'm going to move on. Obscuring has been reworked totally as a concept, which upsets me as a Nemesis Claw player. Right, we'll have to see how their rules gel with these. But, so it sounds like the zone of death is gone. So by the zone of death, I mean that point where you could be, like, less than 2 inches, but more than 1 inch away from a piece of heavy cover, and therefore derive no benefit from it. Whereas if you were closer to it, you'd be in cover, and if you were further away from it, you'd be obscured. So the distance there has been shortened. Now, if you're more than 1 inch away from heavy cover, and the cover line is still going across the heavy cover, you're obscured. So it's easier to be obscured from heavy cover, but and it should be said, we're going to be playing in a world with a lot of heavy cover, because it seems like everything on this Volker's board is heavy cover. But if you're obscured now, you can still be shot. Okay? But when they shoot you, anytime they score a crit, that is automatically downgraded to a normal hit. And one of their successful normal hits has to be totally discarded. So they can shoot you, but it's potentially a waste of time. Okay? Now, there was also some chatter about the idea of non-reciprocal shooting isn't there anymore. I don't know if... I'll be totally frank with you, I never fully understood non-reciprocal shooting, and in my games, even against top players, it basically never came up. Like, I'm obviously aware of the discourse around it, but it's mainly a thing in Into the Dark, as far as I'm... Maybe this is me being a sweet summer child, I don't know. But there was some talk about... I don't know whether this is now, because of the changes that I just outlined to the obscured rules, there's obviously no non-reciprocal shooting, or whether there's some extra rule that simply says, look, if you can be shot, then you can be shot. But then they were also talking about trying to set up some non-reciprocal shooting by having intervening models. So maybe there's a weird rule whereby you can shoot through a friendly model, but you can't be shot through a friendly model. I don't know. We'll have to see, but that is a broad strokes look at how obscuring has been changed. Kind of unique to this kill zone, but again, just to go back to the map, you've got these 2 massive buildings, right, which are going to be quite important to the game. So these are called strongholds, okay, and the strongholds have a couple of rules associated with them. So if you're on the kill zone floor, so the ground floor, right, of the 2 large strongholds, it's as if you're playing Into the Dark, essentially. Blast and torrent weapons that may be shooting you gain lethal 5-up. So suddenly flamethrowers have... They gain that ability to be good... hopefully they get some other buffs as well, right? Because at the moment they're awful. But they gain that ability to be good for clearing out bunkers and things, which is pretty cool. Now, it was very quickly glossed over in the video, but Vantage... I don't know if it still does what it used to do. In other words, it lets you ignore a conceal order on somebody that's behind light cover. Honestly, I don't think there was any light cover on the table, because I don't think any of them had took basic barricades. But Vantage seems to make you retain a successful normal hit for free. And if you're on the second floor of Vantage, I'm sure he said, I'm on the second floor, so I can retain 2 successful normal hits for free. Which is pretty cool. Okay, and we'll look a bit more at Vantage in a minute when, and there's not many of them, we're going to talk about some of the faction-specific stuff that are revealed as well. And then the last thing I noticed about movement, line of sight, and terrain, if you're inside a stronghold, maybe you're next to the external wall of the stronghold, somebody challenges you and fights you through the wall of the stronghold, you become the attacker. So that kind of makes sense to me, yeah? So these strongholds are going to be, I think, a big... dominant feature of a lot of our games of Kill Team for the next year, as this is our kill zone. And I guess if you... there are definitely going to be people out there who choose to keep just using Octarius or whatever else they were playing on, or maybe they weren't using any official terrain to begin with. They had stuff made out of Lego or 3D printed or whatever else. I think you probably want to, if you don't want to buy this terrain and paint it, you probably want to try and emulate the maps and have strongholds, just because the discourse is, like, even in this game, and I've got a longer video coming out about this concept, but even in this game it was like, oh, we played practice games on the map, and the Scion player knew he had to take a stun grenade because there's this one spot in this stronghold where if the Vesper Grenadier gets up on the vantage point very easily because they can fly, that's a massive advantage for them in turning point 1, so you take a stun grenade to counter that play against this team on this map, and it's that level of thing. So if you're not playing on the maps, the official maps with the official terrain, there's going to be all this discourse happening online that you're not going to feel like connected with. If people start talking about like, oh yeah, on layout 3, I always find my opponent ends up hunkered down in the right stronghold, blah 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 blah, and you're going to be there like, what? So I would suggest, if you don't want to buy the stuff, like it does sound like it's going to be a big deal, try and create, designate, 3D print, make out of balsa wood, whatever you want, so that you've got strongholds, because strongholds seem like they're going to be quite important for the next year. Other things that I spotted, so war gear is, as I thought and feared, 4 selections across both menus. It seems like everything involving equipment, war gear, whatever you want to call it, is team-wide. Even the grenades. Now, the way this seemed to work on stream is that you take a smoke grenade, and then you can throw your smoke grenade from any model, but then once you've thrown your smoke grenade, it was thrown. I think. Right? It was hard to tell. It was like it was the same with the stun grenade. Like, everybody had the potential to throw the grenade, but you can only actually throw one grenade. Smoke grenades work differently now. They last a random number of activations, as determined by a dice roll, right? And I think smoke grenades are going to be quite important. Again, if you look at the map layout with the 1, 2, 3 big fire lanes that go from one side of the one here, sorry, one here and one here, that go from one side of the kill zone to the other. I think you're really going to want that smoke grenade on this map layout a lot of the time, right? I think you're going to be taking that a lot. Obviously, we need to see. Hopefully there's a Warcom article next week that's going to go through all the equipment properly. We won't be guessing about this part, but I think smoke grenades are going to become a really important part of Kill Team. The player who does... Now this is interesting. The player who does not go first... Don't think this happened in TP1, but at least from turning point 2 onwards, the player that does not go first gets 2 CP instead of 1. So... You know how critical getting the first turn in turning point 2, turning point 3... turning point 4 can be, so much so that the standard thing that a lot of people choose to do in Kill Team, if they can, is they let they be the attacker, so they can force their opponent to go first in turning point 1, so that they have the winning ties in turning point 2. Like, you don't do that every single time, but that's the among players who are reasonably good at the game, that's like the standard opening move. And if you don't do something like, if you go, actually, I'm going to activate first, or actually, you can be the attacker, that raises an eyebrow, because it's not what people are expecting. And yet people do that. They surrender the first turn in turning point 1, because it's just so important to try and get it in turning point 2, turning point 3. So this makes it a big deal. And actually, I think it was turning point 2, the players were agonising. The guy that had won the roll-off was like, oh, do I want to go first to give you an extra CP? He's had to sit there. And it is going to slow the game down a little bit, because now you got a decision to make. Previously, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, I'll go first. He was sitting there and go, can I capitalise on going first sufficiently to make it worth handing you an extra CP? So you still want to win the roll-off so that you're the person in the position of making that decision, but it becomes an actual decision, right? Now, obviously, it's going to depend. Some teams, historically, have been much more CP hungry than others, right? But this is a really interesting one. Little change that I noticed is Ceaseless is now that you re-roll results of any one number, rather than just results of 1. So they've buffed Ceaseless a little bit. So hopefully all those weapons in the current edition of Kill Team that have Ceaseless, if they still have Ceaseless, you'll be able to see that they've been improved. And Overwatch, massive buff for Overwatch, which is amazing for elite teams. You can do any AP1 action. No penalty if you choose to shoot, so the -1 for shooting is gone. The only thing that's constraining you is if you choose to do a move action, you can only move 2 inches, okay? So you can't move the full 6 or 8 or whatever you've got, right? But otherwise, yes, you can do anything. So, crucially, you can... not sure if you can charge, or if you... Like, you probably can't charge the full distance. Maybe that you can charge if the charge is a 2-inch charge. But you can do mission actions. You can fight. You can shoot, which is pretty good. You know... It means things like, if we assume that capture is still a thing, so you've got a Marine, you're on a point, you captured the objective, someone comes and they steals it from you with 2 guys, and then you manage to shoot one of their guys, and then you could Overwatch with your machine and flick the point back over before it's scored, which is pretty good. Or you could fight as well if you find yourself in combat. If someone's been like, I'll charge you so that I get the extra movement, or so that I'm safe from shooting, and you're like, well, actually, I'm just going to punch you in the head in Overwatch as well. So I think that's a really good change. I like all the changes that I've seen so far. Okay, that's everything about the core game that I found. We got some faction-specific info as well, just to go through. So it looked like every team is a 10-man team, not an 11-man team. So both teams deployed 9 basic guys, so 9 Vespid or 9 Aquilons, and then the Vespid had their little oversight drone, which you basically would always take. The Aquilons had their little gun servitor, which I'm not sure if you would always take. I haven't quite worked out what the gun servitor actually does properly, but it seems like you have to choose potentially between that 10th body and taking the team's Pokemon for both of those teams. As Oro on the Discord correctly guessed, Aquilon tokens do start in your drop zone, and then you move them up, right? Which is a little bit limiting, although, actually the way this game plays, the Vespid didn't do anything on turn 1. They all just stayed on conceal in their deployment zone because they were scared of getting one-shot by them Aquilons coming down if they move forward. So, yeah, that's interesting. I really need to play with or against the Aquilons, I think, to properly understand the ramifications of their dropping in ability. I think it's probably stronger than I initially imagined. And then we saw a single Vespid strategic ploy. So, unlike a Warhammer Plus battle, I hope we still get a Warhammer Plus Kill Team battle report, because honestly, this felt like it was trying to replace that, but it was far harder to follow. And there was only one rule that was flashed up on screen. But the one rule that was flashed up on screen that was new was this, Oculi, which is a Vespid. I've written strategic ploy, it wasn't a strategic ploy, it was the other one, a tactical ploy. It says here, the multispectral eyesight and esoteric sensory acuity of the Vespids are equal to any scanning technologies. As they sweep over the battlefield, they easily pick out even the most well-concealed mercenaries' enemies. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Vespid Stingwing operative performs a shoot action during an activation in which it's used fly. Until the end of that turn, when setting a valid target, treat that friendly operative as being on vantage terrain and 3 inches higher than it currently is, i.e. it benefits from the second rule of vantage terrain. So we don't know exactly what that does, but I am assuming if you are 3 inches above the thing you're shooting at, you get to retain an automatic hit. And I assume if you're 6 inches above the person you're shooting at, you get to retain 2 automatic hits. And I guess if you're playing I wonder if, depending on the rules are written, obviously on the official terrain pack in competitive play, there's only that one building with 2 levels. But if you took the rule set and you use custom terrain and you put a massive tower in the centre, like we used to do for Necromunda, with 9 levels on, technically, if you have a guy like Vasily Zaitseving about on the top of this massive tower, does he get to retain all his dice automatically without rolling them? Because he gets 1 for every 3 levels if he's shooting against someone on the ground. I don't know, but that is how I suspect Vantage works now. Whether it still does its other thing, I've no idea. Pass. Final thoughts. What did you spot that I missed? Probably loads. I've seen that Mr. Glass Half Dead has got a video out. I purposefully haven't watched his video because I want, like, so there might be stuff in, like, if you haven't watched Glandy's video and you've watched mine first of all, thank you, because, you know, I am the little Coke to his Pepsi. But, right, if there might, I don't know, there might be stuff that he's spotted that I haven't seen, and likewise, I might have spotted something he hasn't seen, right? So that's exciting. You're just going to have to watch all the content about the Approved Ops Showcase. And then let me know in the comments, especially if having watched everything and watched it yourself, and I will put a link to the original Twitch thing in the video, if you've actually taken the time to scrub through it yourself and watch it, and you're like, actually this happens, oh Phil, you've missed this, you've misinterpreted that, like, you're not going to upset me, you're going to provide a useful community resource. Or you can head on to my Discord, and we've got the channel all about Hivestorm. Post it in there like, oh, I watched this and this happened, and you missed it in your video. Really useful to everybody, okay? What do you think is the most impactful change? I'm quite surprised by how much the game appears to have actually changed, right? I thought this was going to be a light touch moving forwards thing like they did for Warcry. This seems to be far more changes to me, right? The changes to obscuring for sure are going to be very, very impactful, but also the 2CP, right, when you go second, that's a really big deal, right? Having loads of actions when you overwatch is a really big deal. Like, yeah, it's the same bones of a game, okay? It's not a massive evolutionary change like 10th edition 40k, but there are quite a lot, I think, of changes. I think they all sound positive, but there is a lot of them. The game's going to feel very different. If you enjoyed the video, especially if you've watched this and you've learned something, like, that's interesting. If I've saved you from having to watch the Twitch stream, which, again, I personally didn't find it particularly entertaining. I don't want to offend the people that ran it. I think it might be honestly, a cultural thing, because I'm very reserved and English, and I don't like excitable gentlemen that feel to me like they're putting it on, but I understand that's what is demanded in America. People want that kind of much more manically, bubbly, yeah, woo, woo, yaha, kind of thing, so, understood. But if I have helped you, consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't even have to ever watch the channel again. I just want the subscriber number to go up, because that's apparently the metric by which Games Workshop will decide, oh, we'll invite this guy to be someone that we send early stuff to, so that would be nice. Obviously, I'd love you to watch all the videos and generate the glorious ad revenue and leave comments and likes, and all these things are lovely and helpful. Join the Discord, that's what it's called. Participate in our community. Start to get hyped for the new edition of Kill Team with us, right? A massive thank you, by the way, to all my members. Those are the people that pay me a little bit of money every single month through YouTube's membership program. Wow, amazing. Like, thank you. I don't think anything that I do is worth paying for, so it continually blows my mind that you think it is worth paying for. I'd do this for free anyway, so, you know, thanks, thank you so much. Alright guys, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all on sometime during the week when they inevitably drop a Kill Team focused article on Warcom, probably. Maybe not on Tuesday precisely, but it will be sometime during the week. Alright, see you then. Cheery bye. Bye 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 goodbye.